Aloha and welcome to the State Streets Bike Month virtual rally. We welcome all of our speakers and mahalo everyone for joining us. We have a question and answer session afterwards. So if you have any questions, write them in the chat, including who you want to answer. And so now first we have Travis Counsell. He's the Executive Director of the Hawaii Bicycling League. And he's originally from Vermont. And most recently, he served as the executive director for the New England Mountain Bike Association. Previously, Travis was the owner and manager of Bikadelic Hawai'i, a bicycle rental and tour business in Waikiki. He also received an MBA from the Schindler School of Business at UH Manoa. In college, he rode his bicycle from Baltimore to San Francisco as a cancer research fundraiser. His favorite bike is his mountain bike, but you'll also find him commuting to work, riding to the Makapu Lighthouse, or grabbing groceries on his various other bikes. Welcome, Travis.
Thank you, Janelle. Yeah, and thanks for everybody coming today. I think we'll probably see a few more people jump in here, and it's great to see that it's recorded so we can share with some other people as well. So really, I mean, what I want to focus on during my talk or this little section is kind of HBL, my role at HBL, and how members, both people on this call, but also a lot of our other members, can get involved and really help with the advocacy efforts. So my role as executive director at HBL is to help the organization meet its mission. So that's really to enable more people to ride bicycles, whether that's for health, recreation, or transportation. And we kind of do that through three different focuses or different areas that overlap a lot, but through advocacy efforts like calls like this, and other rallies and other get-togethers. We have educational workshops, whether that's for fourth graders all the way up to adult learn to ride and senior cycling. And then of course we have events, whether that's our small bike month events like this or larger ones like the Honolulu Century Ride. So really, in short, the goal is just to make riding a bike an option for more people. Riding a bicycle has been shown to have enormous benefits for your health, including reducing your risk of heart disease and cancer, nearly in half if you're ride frequently. Not to mention boosting your mental well-being. I think we all know what it feels like to have that smile on your face when you're riding a bike. It's a natural antidepressant. Definitely what we all need, kind of after the collective isolation and trauma we've gone through for the last couple of years with the pandemic. So really an important personal health benefit and just kind of mental health benefit. So, but riding a bike can also have a great positive impact on your community as well as the environment. We live on an island that is thankfully an amazing place to ride nearly year round, maybe a few rain showers, but pretty awesome place to live. So when you're riding a bike, you're far more connected with the community that you're in. Rather than being on the highway or in your car, you're just a little more connected to the world around you. And of course, if you use it as a mode of transportation, you're reducing your dependence on fossil fuels and really helping to combat climate change and contribute to that effort. So at HBL, we work with state and local partners like the individuals that will be speaking later today to improve the infrastructure, as well as encourage more people to ride bicycles through various ways, ideally by making it a more comfortable and safe environment for people to ride. As I kind of hinted to, more people riding bikes means less people driving, less congestion on the roadways, less parking, and ultimately less pollution as well. Bikes and other modes of active transportation will certainly play a large role in combating our combating climate change and in our efforts to kind of push back against that. So, and it certainly has a ripple effect. So we can hopefully, through the efforts of HBL and our partners, really encourage more people to ride bikes to the point where it's seen as part of the norm, not just an outlier or a small fraction of the society. It's a normal way to get around and a normal activity to do. So one of those major barriers that we've seen to getting people riding is really feeling safe on the roadways. And studies after studies have shown that separated bikeways or protected bikeways different types of infrastructure that kind of separate the cars and people riding bikes drastically, and reduce injuries, fatalities, and get a broader range of people riding. Of course, there's plenty of cyclists who feel comfortable riding on the road with traffic, but there's definitely a barrier to entry that we're seeing with this infrastructure change, that we can get more people riding. So one of our goals is certainly to make sure that vulnerable users and different user groups are accommodated and even prioritized in a lot of our planning and policies, which I applaud the city and state for some of the efforts that they've taken there as well. And I know we've got a lot more work to do as well. So it's great to see the city focusing on projects like increasing protected bike lanes in urban Honolulu and adding them in other places where they can, and the state working on lengthy projects like the Leeward Bikeway and other large ones, and the recently updated bike master plan, which does include a number of protected bike lanes, which is great. So and it's possibly an even more important piece to all that is ensuring that all of these projects connect and create a network, so that there's not just a dead end or that they all connect to make these kind of routes. So part of the advocacy efforts on HBL's side is to make sure that we support these projects, support the connection, and kind of work on these overall efforts. One of the challenges we've heard, especially when you start thinking about protected bike lanes and other infrastructure, is when that infrastructure removes parking. This is definitely an uphill battle in a lot of places, but you hear this concern a lot of times from shop owners or business owners that it's going to reduce or lower their sales. And interestingly enough, study after study really shows that that's not the case. I think it's a little bit more of a fear of the unknown or fear of change. But a lot of these studies show that these sales are actually higher in these areas that have added bike lanes. It brings in new customers, more frequent customers, as well as just kind of slowing down the overall pace makes that a more attractive retail environment, as well as a safer street in general. So I'm hopeful that through our advocacy efforts with the city and state, we can really get that mentality out there that removal of parking is not the end of the world, as some have claimed it is. So we're really happy to see a lot of studies, both from the mainland and here, that show that's not as big of concern as some people certainly have felt in the past. So, but I don't kid myself. We won't get everybody to bike, but I think it's an important thing to emphasize that even if somebody is still driving in a car or anything like that, like having more people riding their bike means less cars on the road and means a more equal balance of ways of people getting around. And hopefully we can encourage, the people that might be just thinking about getting it or has, barriers to their getting back on a bike. Maybe they rode when they were a kid, but they haven't since they've, been an adult. So, when I look at the things that HBL offers, whether that's our workshops I mentioned, or group rides, or, one-on-one help planning a commuting route, or our large events, I think we have something for everybody. And the cool thing about it is it really just shows how universal the cycling community is. You can have people of all walks, colors, creeds, et cetera, that come together around the bicycle, which I think we'll continue to see really as a tool for positive change in the future and beyond, that just is such a simple tool that can be used for so many things. So, as I finish off today, I could talk forever on this, but more a call to action, encouraging not only those on this call, but those that watch this call to get involved at whatever level makes sense for you, whether that's at a neighborhood board level to encourage a safe route to school for keiki in your local neighborhood, or at the city and county level to encourage city council members to work to prioritize funding of bike projects or funding of bike education, or find a way to make the commute to your work a little more bike friendly if it's a little further distance. So, or we have several state representatives on here as well to work for better policies and planning at the state level, or even I think there's some that have the goal of working more at the federal level to make sure that funding for active transportation and the policies around that really trickle down to the state levels as well. So, but really the main thing for me is get involved, encourage others to get involved. This is a collective effort that takes persistence. It's not something that happens overnight as much as we wish it would. But we are a large community, a passionate community that shouldn't underestimate our power when we work together. So thank you guys for coming today, and I look forward to hearing the folks on this call. And feel free to reach out anytime. I'm always happy to talk about this. And thank you, Janelle, for organizing this. So thank you.
Thank you, Travis. We're so happy to have you with HBL. And it's so important to have safe streets for our kids and to reduce pollution, reduce isolation. So next we have Chelsea Gonzales. She leads the Hawaii Alcohol Policy Alliance at the Hawaii Public Health Institute. She graduated from the University of Hawaii at Manoa in public health. And formed in 2020, the coalition is a volunteer-based organization which advocates for research-based, responsible alcohol policies in the best interest of the people of Hawaii to reduce often overlooked alcohol-related harms in our communities. Chelsea brings advocacy experience and drive to see changes made. Welcome, Chelsea.
Thank you. Thanks, Janelle. And thanks everyone for having me. Travis, I really love the points that you touched on. And, I think that where our alliance comes in, and I'm so thankful that we've worked with Hawaii Bicycling League as partners, is, we collaborate to want to see this change in making roads safer for all users, but especially with this group for bike users. One of the things that I'm really grateful that we collaborated on just this last year is our shared passion to want to see a reduction in drunk driving crashes. It takes a huge toll on our state. With impaired driving, Hawaii unfortunately ranks 4th in the nation for impaired driving related fatal crashes. And nationally, we know that alcohol impaired driving, I should say, is the leading cause of death on roadways. This is nationally. It takes a toll on our state. All of these different fatalities and crashes, it costs over 164 million annually. And we know that, I think that every one of us, whenever we see a tragedy in the news, or we think within our network of who has been impacted that we know of, or maybe it's a friend of a friend that's been impacted by a drunk driving related incident, crash, it really shakes up our reality a little bit, and we want to take steps towards wanting to prevent that. And that's what our alliance is all about. Particularly this last session, there was an opportunity for us to support what we call the BAC bill. And what the BAC bill does is it lowers the blood alcohol concentration limit to 0.05% for the offense of operating a vehicle under the influence of an intoxicant. And this is mostly to deter folks from choosing to get behind the wheel after drinking too much. And the reason why that we decided to go forward with this is because there's plenty of studies that do suggest when you lower the BAC limit, you'll see a reduction in fatal car crashes. What's really neat is that there's a pretty recent study in just this last year, earlier this year, I should say, in February, where the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, it's a long acronym, but we usually refer to as NHTSA. We saw that in only one other state in this country, Utah, was successful in passing this 0.05 bill and lowering their BAC to 0.05. And what we saw within a 21-month period following that passage of that law is that there was a 19.8% drop in fatal car crashes. And there's a lot to say about, statistics and numbers and, what does that mean? How many does that include? But, our bottom line is that even if it prevents one life from being lost, that's what's going to make a big difference for us. Whether you're a pedestrian, whether you're a bike user, especially other folks in vehicles as well, this is something that we're all really passionate about, and we don't want to see any more lives lost due to drunk driving. So that's sort of all I have to say. I appreciate all of the words that were shared, especially with Travis just before me. Our alliance, the role that we take and the partnership that we're grateful for is prevention, safety prevention, and what can we do to prevent all of these accidents, crashes from happening, and ultimately to support more bike users, to support more folks not being deterred from getting on their bikes and being worried about, hey, I got to get home after work, but I'm worried about, it's late at night and maybe people are drinking, and, one thought can lead to another. And I'm just grateful for the partnership with Hawaii Bicycling League, because we do agree that we'd like to see safer roads for all users. So thank you so much. Thank you for the time. I'm going to keep it brief, and I'll definitely stay on for questions. And if you as individuals would like to learn more about the Alliance, or maybe you have a personal story that you'd like to share with me, I'm all ears. I'd be happy to schedule a talk story with you, and we can always get connected through Janelle, or if you'd like to DM me in the chat. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Chelsea. Yeah, we look forward to working with you to reduce the alcohol-related crashes and prevent these tragedies from happening. Next, we have Brandon Elefante. He's the District 8 Council member. From 2011 to 2014, Brandon worked as a legislative aide to Honolulu City Council member Breen Harimoto. Prior to this, he was a high school teacher and coach at Damien Memorial School. He worked in higher education and was a staff assistant in the Hawaii State Senate to Senator Will Espero. In August 2014, Brandon won the vacant seat on the Honolulu City Council to represent Aiea, Pearl City, and Waipahu. In November 2018, he was reelected to a second term at the Honolulu City Council. He's looking forward to continue working to enhance quality of life, strengthen and improve community ties, and foster community resiliency. Welcome, Brandon.
Thank you so much, and great morning to all of you. Thank you for the invitation. Again, my apologies for jumping on a few minutes after 11, but I appreciate this time. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share a little bit about myself and what we've been working on, and I did see some questions come into the chat, so I'm going to do my best to address those questions during this short time that I have with you. Fun fact, did you know where I first learned how to ride a bike? It was the Hawaii Bicycling League in 5th grade through the Bike Ed program. And thanks to HBL and all the partners involved, I learned how to ride a bike. And I was nervous and scared at the time because all my friends in grade school were riding bikes at like 2nd grade. And I grew up in a very hilly neighborhood, and I was freaked out. And I still remember that 5th day on a Friday when you go on by yourself. Well, we went down that hill that I was scared of. But needless to say, I enjoy riding bikes. I don't ride as often as I should, yet when I get out, I do my best to look at different trails and different multi-use paths all across the country and even the world to see, what we could do to bring to Honolulu. And I think, as Travis mentioned, we do have the Oahu Bike Plan. We also advocated to get a pedestrian master plan that all interfolds with each other. I think it all goes in a combination to healthy initiatives and getting out there. And I know one big key component that HBL and all the supporters have been a part of, whether it's on the Century Ride or just in different areas, has been really the Pearl Harbor Historic Trail. And I really want to thank John and all the other people that have led the efforts with getting the seniors out there on tricycles or getting people out to the trail. I will agree, it's frustrating to see how the trail has come over the years with homeless and wild dogs that are on the trail. I know there's a question about that and what we can do. I have some exciting news for all of you, hot off the press. As of yesterday afternoon, Director Morton informed me that he signed off on construction plans for the pilot project, the first phase from where it is in Aiea, behind the Aiea, the Pearl Kai Shopping Center, right by Aiea Kai Place, if many of you use the path, all the way down to Best Buy area where the Pearl Ridge Rail Station is going to be. That's going to be a sort of demonstration project where we're going to widen the path, look at different areas. So now it's just going out for procurement and hopefully out to bid soon. So that is the recent news on that. And we hope that we'll have more construction as we go forward. And while my time is sunsetting on the council in these last 5 to 6 months, we're working really hard. I know hopefully long term, the Oahu Regional Transportation Plan, or ORTP 2045, could look out long range plans all the way to Nanakuli. I know there's a question about that and where we could focus on. I know they're building and constructing Leeward Bikeway 1 on the state side, and then also Part 2. The challenge with the Pearl Harbor Historic Trail specifically, and I think all of us here collectively in this Zoom meeting here know that it is really a treasure, right? I think we can all agree that the Pearl Harbor Historic Trail is a treasure that hasn't been utilized, that hasn't been activated, more importantly, that the community, they want to feel safe. Just yesterday afternoon, I was talking to a gentleman by the name of Ken, and he rides on the trail, and he hasn't rode in years. And he just told me, we just have this in our backyard, and people want to feel safe and come to it. And the challenge is really working with multiple jurisdictions, such as the Navy, the state, different landowners along the trail. There is hope that one day when we start this demonstration project, when more of the landowners can activate the space, that we have more buy-in from different resources, that we can basically utilize this trail and set it as sort of an example, not just for the state. I want to think visionary and for the world, and similar examples to like the Atlanta Beltline or the Vancouver or in LA, right by the airport, all the way up to Santa Monica area, to Santa Barbara area. So there's different trails and examples, and Kauai on the Kapa'a path. So that's just one aspect. We do need to look at how we can integrate more multi-use lanes, more bike lanes, more whether it be cycle tracks or shared use. And I think that's really an important component to active living and being active and getting more people to feel comfortable to not only get on bikes, but to feel safe even when they walk. So aside from that, I look forward to any other questions. If I didn't do my best to answer them, I'll do my best to follow up and respond. But I just really want to thank you for all your leadership and advocacy through the years. HPL has really been a pillar in the community, especially advocating for being a more bike-friendly city, but also a more healthy and safe city. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Yes, we've been hearing a lot of people complaining about the dogs, especially, and people being bit. So that's so important to make that safer. Next, we have Matt Gonser. He's the Chief Resiliency Officer and Executive Director of the Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency. For 3 years, he was the manager of the office's Coastal and Water Program. His goals are to support the city and county of Honolulu in its vision of a more economically self-sufficient and safer Oahu. The office has established and continues to develop initiatives, including the Oahu Resilience Strategy, the Climate Action Plan, and the Climate Ready Oahu Adaptation Strategy. So, welcome.
Aloha, thank you, Janelle. And I couldn't be happier to be sandwiched between two really critical city council leaders, Councilmember Elefante and Councilmember Tsuneyoshi. As Janelle said, my name is Matt Gonser, Director for the city's Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency. And I'm very happy to be here on behalf of Mayor Blangiardi this morning. First and foremost, riding a bike is capital F fun, right? And fun is essential for our physical and emotional health. But for riding a bike to be fun, it has to be safe. We've heard a lot about that already today. And more around Oahu through Council's leadership, the Department of Transportation Services, working with our state colleagues, we are returning to traditional safe and complete streets, reconnecting people with place and each other. This increases our social resiliency, our collective health. It provides more choice for more people, and it creates opportunities for saving money and improving affordability. Whether it's the North Shore Bike Path, Goodale Avenue, or improvements through Wahiawa and Councilmember Tsuneyoshi's district, or as we've heard already today, the Pearl Harbor Bike Path and the complex of streets of Waimano Home Road, Ho'olaulea or Ho'omalu streets in Councilmember Elefante's district, or in my neck of the woods, Pensacola, South King, Ward, and South Street, safe and complete streets are fun for all. But I'd really like to just share 2 anecdotes and then 2 project announcements with you here today. And this is really reinforcing why safe and complete streets do matter for all. First, there was this morning, however many years ago, when I was biking to work downtown from the McCully area where I used to live. And this was when South King Protected Bike Lane had first officially opened for 2-way travel. Try to remember that. This meant you could ride EVA-bound, safe and protected in the head-on direction of people driving in cars going Diamond Head. It seems wild to think about then, and now is sort of a no-brainer and a best practice for so many of our other streets. That morning, early still, as the sun was rising, glaring in the driver's eyes, they're all kind of covering their eyes, sometimes scarily, trying to protect themselves as they drive. There were 2 other bike riders in front of me. And as we all approached and converged at one of the red lights, the new traffic signals, one rider turned and just exclaimed, "Isn't this wonderful?" And I replied enthusiastically, "It is." And the other rider who was in the lane shared back kind of a shy, but a really huge grin. The first rider who had engaged us was a woman in her 70s. She was getting safe early morning exercise so that she could remain healthy. The other rider was a 12-year-old boy who was riding safely to Washington Middle School that morning. This is just such a picture of, if you build it, they will come. And the data proves this. When we install infrastructure and make investments in bicycling and pedestrian facilities, people come out and use it. Truly, biking and safe and complete streets is for all. The other anecdote is a little bit more of a personal nature. You know, my workday, day in and day out, really is grappling with the truth and reality of climate change. Oftentimes, personally, we're straddling between despair and hope. This is for me as an individual, with my team, with my city colleagues, and with community. I'm fortunate that I have a fairly quick and accessible 15 to 20-minute bike ride to and from work. This ride, it gives me wind in my face, flowery smells in my nose, sights of Mauna Oku or moon set above my head. And because I'm moving in this network of safe and protected bike lanes, those 2 times a day are some of the most critical moments for me to get my heart pumping with good energy and to alleviate anxiety. We all need physical activity, and safe and complete streets brings it directly into our daily lives, keeping us emotionally and physically healthy. It allows us to take care of ourselves so that we can better serve and love others. And this is why the city administration, in partnership with City Council and community, is continuing to implement these bike and complete street facilities island-wide. We're looking to maximize these opportunities to connect communities, enhance equity and health through the city budget and other federal funding opportunities. And in line with that, I just want to share 2 additional exciting efforts on top of what Councilmember Elefante was able to share. In coordination with our congressional delegation and state DOT, there are big dreams afoot to plan and design for a major mobility spine from Kaena to Kapiolani. Think about filling all those connections and pukas and improving the paths. You know, this would include the Leeward Bikeway and the improvements that are underway, and then really helping to mitigate some of those concerns along Pearl Harbor. And then we know that you need to connect these places because it's not a network unless we make it safe to connect from path to path. And additionally, and more near term, through ARPA recovery funds to support a community that has been very hard hit through the COVID pandemic, we're advancing the community envisioned protected bike lanes on both sides of North King Street in Kalihi, from Middle Street to Liliha Street and the Dillingham intersection. This is a critical transportation and equity project, and we're so grateful for the dedicated community engagement these past many years. This project supports job access, safe routes to school, and improves equitable distribution of some of the city multimodal investments. And we're so pleased that we're going to be able to deliver this. Lastly, though, we're talking generally about bike infrastructure in particular today, let's not forget the broader benefits of safe and complete streets and other improvements to our public right-of-way. With Councilmember Elefante's and Tsuneyoshi's leadership, City Council just unanimously passed Bill 27 to reinstate and pilot more sidewalk dining. This sparks more community and economic activity, provides more people with the experiences of being a pedestrian, and experience is critical for people to understand the benefits and get behind more investments in the public right-of-way. Additionally, the data does show that when we invest in protected bike lanes, it also makes it safer for people walking. So all of these things that we've talked about today move us in the direction of physically, emotionally, and financially healthy people, neighborhoods, and a greater, more resilient Oahu. So again, thank you for the opportunity to share some comments here today and look forward to more of the discussion.
Thank you so much, Matthew, for all those projects you're working on. In cities that create functional, protected network of bike lanes, they get up to 50% of all trips by bicycle. So next we have Heidi Tsuneyoshi. She's the District 2 Council member. And through hard work and determination, Heidi put herself through college, earning her bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Hawaii at Manoa, and her master's degree in counseling psychology from Chaminade University. She became a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Hawaii. She began a legacy of public service 20 years ago and has provided support to those most in need. Heidi has worked in homeless and transitional shelters, in the women's prison, with at-risk youth at Lehua High School, and worked as the statewide coordinator for a child abuse prevention program. She has seen firsthand the real struggles individuals and families are facing in our communities and the challenges that make it everyday life difficult. It is these struggles that compelled her to serve and make things better within our local government and better support our people. Welcome, Heidi.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to the Hawaii Bicycling League, to Janelle and Travis for coordinating this, and for everything you do on a daily basis to help improve the quality of life for so many of our residents by offering the opportunity for bicycling. Thank you to Chelsea for sharing other important facts about how to maintain safe roadways. To Director Gonser, thank you so much for always supporting everything we're doing at the city to try to ensure safe passage for bicyclists and for all our pedestrians and everyone that utilizes our roadways. And to my fellow council member Elefante, that was good to hear about your bicycling history. Just a fun factoid for me, one of my first times riding a bike for 30 years was just recently. I had a major bicycle incident when I was younger in my teens, and I stopped riding a bike. And just recently, one of the teachers from Sunset Beach Elementary, Ms. Rex Dubiel, who has been a really strong advocate for the Keala bike path, invited me for a bike ride. So having not biked in so long, I was a little bit concerned about getting back on a bicycle again. And she assured me it's just like riding a bike. So I got back on, and after so many years, over actually about close to 30 years, I got on, and it was just so nice to be on a bicycle again and be out there on the Keala Pupukea bike path and just experiencing how good that is. So just with that recent experience and with many things that we've been working on together with different community groups, it's been my honor and privilege to work with different groups for bike paths throughout my district of District 2. I just mentioned the Keala Pupukea bike path, and that, as you know, is a path that's very important to the North Shore for students and going to schools, and for many of North Shore residents just going through their communities. And so I have been very privileged to be a part of getting funding to improve the conditions of that bike path, which is now 30 years old. And we want to make sure that that is a valuable asset in the future for North Shore residents and beyond. So Keala Pupukea bike path, definitely a big project, and I want to thank the administration and the city for supporting that. We've been able to do community efforts to clean up that bike path and make sure it's safe, because as we all know here, having a safe bike path is very important. So making sure that it's clean and free of debris and free of different things poking into the bike path is very important. So been very happy to coordinate some community efforts to make sure that that bikeway is clean. As Director Gonser talked about, the Wailua bike path is also gonna move forward with a project to extend that bike path, which is very important for students at Wailua Elementary School and being able to go to and from that elementary school. So it's very exciting to see the things that are happening throughout our communities to improve access through our bike paths. Those two are great examples. And we also have in our district the Maile Kahana bike path, which is another really good path. But other than that, also, I know it's important for us all to support projects within communities. So very grateful that within the Wahiawa community, we're having a complete streets project moving forward. So there's so much to be done and so much that we can do collaboratively to make sure not only bike paths, but everyday usage on our main streets and improvements to our roadways are completed so that we can ensure that people feel more comfortable to get on their bicycles to go to and from to where they need to be. So very excited for this opportunity. Thank you so much for having me. I just have to say as well, thank you to Hawaii Bicycling League for doing different big events like recently the Haliva Metric Century Ride was held, and I was so happy to be there as part of that. As you know, those type of events were on hold for quite a while due to COVID. But to be out there and seeing people of all ages so excited to get on their bikes and the smiles on their faces going out and enjoying that ride, and just the collaboration and the benefits for people's physical health and their mental health, and just being able to be out and socialize is so amazing. As we know, the Honolulu Century Ride is coming soon too, so that's exciting as well. So thank you for all that you do, both for the everyday bicycling adventures that people have, and also for the larger scale events and educational components and everything that we do. Happy to be a part of supporting all that happens for bicycling. Thank you again to the Hawaii Bicycling League for all you do, and look forward to continuing to celebrate bicycling and support you in your efforts moving forward for safety and access for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it, Heidi.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
went out there and collected signatures with Rex, and she's a real asset to the community.
She is hoping for good things with that. Thank you for your partnership with that.
Mm-hmm. So next we will do questions. Let's see. Michelle Kwok, do you want to read your question? Okay, I'll read it. When is the city going to add more parking? I guess bike parking? When will there be at least one protected bike lane connecting all the neighborhoods? What kind of incentives employers should offer to employees who bike to work? And would the state support these incentives? I think that's to anybody.
A lot of great questions in there, Michelle. And certainly on the timing of specific projects would always direct people back to the Department of Transportation's Complete Streets website. And those goals and those aspirations that you alluded to, really helping to advance and help inform the priority implementation of whether it's the pedestrian plan or the bike plan. That kind of community feedback is really helpful. We try to be opportunistic when we're doing road repaving so that we can immediately make improvements and installations, but certainly thinking across any of the projects, trying to align it with community champions, council members as well. We always want to stay open to that. I can't speak for sort of the incentives on the private business side. Maybe there are a couple of private employers here that maybe have some opinions. And I think all of these kinds of things to provide more choice, to make it easier for people to tap into these resources and these amenities, that's the collective effort that we all have in front of us. And I think that choice in access and mobility also will continue to ensure affordability for people. We know how expensive it can be to have to think about parking and owning a vehicle, operating a vehicle, insuring a vehicle. And if people or households, we know it's not possible for everybody. But again, we're thinking about increasing choice, increasing options for people so that they can make those informed decisions to help drive down their own household costs and maybe both stay healthier, but also save a little bit of money along the way.
Thank you. Next question. When will the bridge over Waikele Stream be completed? If anybody knows that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, right now everything's scheduled. That part of the Leeward Bikeway is scheduled to be completed June of 2023, or the mid-year 2023. It was supposed to be done at the end of this year, but they're having all sorts of issues with utilities running across the bridges and having to redesign and getting environmental stuff redone a little bit. But they're actually starting to do construction on the bridges, but it'll be next summer. Yeah, a year from now.
Yeah, this is Dan. I think this is an example of state government not working well. That contract was let, I think, in 2020, and they, you know, they're making the design of the bridges more complicated than they need to be. It's just very disappointing. That's the way I would characterize it. It's one of these. Give it to the contractor, and they you know, take forever and so forth. So I'm sorry, but that's my opinion about it.
So Daniel, if I can give you some insight, this has been such a long process, and part of the deal was meeting the requirements of the historic Hawaii Historic Society and the Hawaiian Rail Society. And so they had a lot of input on how those bridges were to be reconstructed, and basically it was a negotiation. And so we got the negotiation through. HBL was a big part of that back in that day. And thank goodness, I'm just happy they're being built, but I definitely agree that this is taking way too long. And once they got there, they saw things that they didn't realize were there. And that's part of the folks who were the initial planners, but we're getting it, so it's happening.
Okay, next question from Jake. He asks, will these upgrades to Pearl Harbor Historic Trail be able to safely connect the trail to Cam Highway? The current path ends at the Aiea Recreation Center onto the sidewalk. And we have some responses saying that we don't have a timeline, but we will look into it.
Yeah, I can kind of answer that question too. Thanks, Jake, for that question. I know, and it's great to hear a lot of interest for the Pearl Harbor Historic Trail. So the challenge with that is, I think you're referring to right by the Admiral's Boathouse, where since 9/11, they're closed access as if you're going to the Arizona Memorial Visitor Center. We attempted to work with Congressman Case's office and the Navy and Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam on an alternative route, which would be by Richardson Field. So if you're coming off, you have to take like that shortcut that you come on to Kamehameha Highway on the Makai side, and then you get to that crossing by Aiea Access Road. The state put in some flashing yield signs on that, and that's what the Navy wanted. And so we thought after we did that, they would be willing to grant us easement access. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And so now we're back to sort of the drawing board as to what would be the best access. I know that the city through DTS is looking at a multi-use path on the Mauka side of Kamehameha Highway. So unfortunately, people will have to cross over on the Mauka side and not stay on the Makai side. So perhaps through HBL and advocacy with Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam or the Navy, we could revisit that. But as of right now, talks are stalled in terms of looking on the Makai side. So that's something that would just make sense, where you don't have to cross the street and stay on one side. But I can provide you a more detailed answer to Jake and HBL, but that's kind of the short answer to that question.
Thanks, Brandon. Next from John, should the city and county legislate to require DFM and DPR to develop maintenance plans to maintain bike infrastructure and parks?
I'll take that one. I would like to say that definitely. I believe that that definitely needs to happen as we are going through the process with Kealapukea bike path. That's one of the main issues that has been brought up, is that the maintenance schedule is not sufficient to be able to make sure that we're handling maintenance issues in a regular way to increase the lifespan of our bike paths. So we did work with Department of Facility Maintenance and Department of Urban Forestry and DPR to work on a comprehensive maintenance plan moving forward. Of course, the issue always we hear is with regards to just having the staffing available and the resources needed to continue. But definitely believe there should be a maintenance plan. And I think that incorporating community partners like the North Shore Outdoor Circle, for instance, and other partners in developing a plan is critical in how we can maintain our bike paths and do a better job of maintaining them. So we have done that with Kealapukea bike path, hopeful that that continues to be better managed, but we definitely need that for all of our bike paths.
I just want to add on, certainly ensuring that the departments have the means and the plans to do it is critical. But on the city side, we also greatly appreciate the volunteerism that's out there. I think about all the support that HBL and others have provided to coordinate, whether it's sweeping and cleaning within some of the in-town protected bikeways, some of the partnerships with construction companies and others volunteering to reinstall some of the bollards that you can see behind my head here, whether it's South Street or Pensacola. It's somewhat frightening to see how they get demolished. It certainly makes you wonder about the drivers on the street and how some of these bollards are getting just flattened and removed ultimately. But across all of the infrastructure that we're installing, it's a joint effort, and we're, again, greatly appreciative of the volunteerism and leadership out there in community, in addition to what the city can do for maintenance too.
Great, thank you. Yeah, there has been talk of making those bollards more permanent, so if cars do go over, they are not so easily entered into the bike lane. Let's see, so when the state recently repaved Ala Boulevard, Nimitz Highway, why were there no changes to the bike lanes? Those lanes are unprotected and too close to the fast, heavy traffic, and that's from Chris.
I think he had a follow-up clarifying that it was Ala Moana Boulevard. So those are state routes. Certainly at the city, I wouldn't be able to provide any insights into the state DOT's practices.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something we can follow up with the state on, Janelle. I don't think anybody here is going to be willing or able to speak for the state on that one.
From Brian, what is the possibility of having council persons in the area, state, and CNC agencies ride as a group to experience the potential of the bike path and identify key areas of improvements?
I would say that's a great idea. Happy to participate. Just let me know. I'll show up with a bike and I'm there.
Is that participate or organize, council member?
Oh, I don't know about organize. I don't know if I have the time. I'll defer to the better organizers in the room. I'm sure Councilmember Tsuneyoshi, you would join for a bike ride too, right?
Well, I was going to say, I just got invited to that bike ride that got me on a bike after decades. And that really did change my perspective on what was happening with that bike path. And it really did open my eyes, specifically, like was mentioned in the comment, to the areas that needed to be addressed. So I definitely think that's a great idea. And I think every council member should get out and ride a bike in their district for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely something we can work on putting together, specifically for Pearl Harbor, but also other places that could use a little more focus.
Yeah, we organized one bike ride with our members, and we are planning to do another one soon.
If I can make a suggestion, we might want to time that with Make a Difference Day, which is in October, where you usually have community groups out on the trail. Is it Brian? That's Bamor. Is it you, Brian? That suggested DFM maintenance crew come out. I think that's a wonderful idea. Getting them on a bike, I don't know, but we can always make the attempt, right? So, and just like Councilmember
We've got a
Tsuneyoshi
number
and I.
of those senior cycling trikes as well. We can put them on
The
a trike if
trikes,
they need.
just like Tsuneyoshi and I, right? We both shared personal stories of how just transformational it is, right? When you just educate and you actually get on a bike, when it's like riding a bike again in that sense. So you just have to experience it.
I think it's really very important because, you know, a lot of these problems are expressed through the 311 line, which is a good thing, by the way. The unfortunate part is a handoff. They hand it off to whatever agency that is possibly responsible to follow up, etc. And that's where the problems lie. You know, the agency says, oh, we're not aware of the problem, or we'll check into it and whatever, and it doesn't happen. You know, so I think, you know, if we get everybody as a collective mind to just go one day, get a group over there and ride the path. It's supposed to be a recreational path, so it should be fun. And we'll cite the unfun places, you know, and I think that's important.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other questions or comments? No?
Well, yeah, this is Dan. Comment again. That military road from Waipahu to Schofield could be made into a bike path. But I think the Admiral's house is kind of higher priority from the military.
Okay. Nice. So we're going to save this recording and share it on our Facebook and through email. So thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to working with you in the future to make Hawaii a bicycling paradise.